roaches or anything like that. You haven't mentioned in your build order when your third base goes down. When does your third base normally go down?
At the 30 supply.
About 30 supply. Okay, so it is I was thinking it was that, but you just hadn't written it down, so I was like, I'm pretty sure that's in here and it's just assumed, but I was just making sure it wasn't like a weird 2-base Hydra opening. Okay, cool. So versus Robo Twilight, you do add a Roach Warren. Okay, cool. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, delayed Roach Warren 430, then making only for 350 spores, but if I see its Phoenix first, I delay for the Oracle. Okay. Yeah, so versus Stargate, we probably want to delay the lair since spores and queens cost so much money anyway. Sure, chat's like, in-game scene. You guys are missing nothing. 8 times speed. So, because you're not going to go straight into Hydras against the Stargate play, right? Like, immediately, you've got to build spores and queens, right? So you would always want to delay your lair a little bit, even if it's just a small amount. We don't know how much yet. We'll figure that out once we look deeper. But looking down at your opinions before we get too deep on what your problems are, you said you're not sure if it's good to go from Roach Ling into Bane Hydra. So like if you get forced into a lot of Roaches from like a Robo Twilight opening, you find the transition very awkward, right?
Oh, right, that's true. That's how I feel.
So I think that's kind of like an interesting one. In the past, one of my favorite things to say to people for that, and basically the rule is if they're really aggressive and force over 20 roaches from you, switch gears. So one of my favorite things to do off that is a Roach, Ravager, Hydra, Ling timing. Basically just both Hydra upgrades, 12 Hydras, and pure Roach, Ravager, Ling, and try to break their third. So the whole idea there, and why we do that, is it's a good way to get rid of the Roaches and just use the advantage. If we've defended very well, I see a lot of Zergs get ahead, but then they've got this big pack of Roaches, and they're trying to swap into Hydras and melee upgrades and Banelings, and they end up with this kind of awkward maxed out army where all the Roaches do is block all the Banelings, and like they don't do enough damage, and even though you were ahead early from shutting down a big adept pressure or an Archon drop, you never really use the advantage, and you end up losing later in the game, right? And that's kind of the problem you described there. So I think this is nice because it says, hey, if we really crush an attack, we can just launch across the map with our counterattack of like Roach, Ravager, Ling, Hydra and do a timing. Now, how many drones would that be off? That's usually about... That's like a 5 gas, 55 drone timing attack. So that's like a real committed thing. And then Spire goes down as you move out. So you can add a wave of muters behind it. Now, this is not a style you're going to play necessarily that often, but I really like having this as like a... Alright, he was really aggressive. He forced me to go off my game plan. I'm going to have a really aggressive counterattack. We get just a pack of Hydras with the upgrades, Roaches, Lings, go do a big attack, build a round of muters as that attack's going on or as the attack finishes. And from there we can go into hydra-bane or anything like that, right? You know, go to your comfort zone. Go to your comfort zone of hydra-bane after this. But often you'll win with that attack or the muter swap, right? So I think that's really nice for just making sure we have a let's take the fight to our opponent. Let's not let them, you know, get away with that or anything like that. Now, in this particular... actually, let's keep talking through these questions before we talk about this replay at all.
Okay.
So when attacking in 2 different positions with Ling Bane Hydra, you find it hard for you? You feel like the Banelings you send with the Hydras die, and then the Zealots just kind of take out your Hydras, and you end up taking really inefficient fights.
Yeah, it's like the one thing which is good I get with this is that I am kinda like make Protoss feel comfortable, because he's like losing APMs because he have to like react somehow against this counter attack, but not really feels like I do any sort of damage or something like this. maybe I'm doing it wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good point that you've identified it. The first thing is identifying, hey, this feels like it does nothing. Sweet. Immediately we can put our focus on it. Okay, how can we hit it harder and faster? How can we micro it better? There's unlimited things to talk about there, right? Like, you know, how do we maybe just use only Ling Bane for the counterattack, right? And run straight in the mineral line? Because it's absolutely correct. If you ever find yourself with just hydras left on an attack, say you've got 8 hydras, even if it looks like they're going to find an opening, unless there's a lot of chaos going on, you get the fuck out of there, right? Because of exactly what you described. Otherwise, 10 zealots warp in, goodbye hydras, right? Super efficient for the Protoss, super bad for us. So it's absolutely something where hydras are great with Ling Bane, but there are obviously points where they can get in and do crazy damage. There's points where they can fall off and do fucking nothing, right? So that's actually a really good point that we can kind of look at. I think lurkers are really good. They're less mobile. So if we play lurkers, I don't like hydra-baneling into lurker. I think that's kind of like a desperate thing you can do when you're behind, but it's a kind of bad standard plan because hydra-bane's very mobile, right? And you want to be doing plays with it. And then it's like, and now we get lurkers. And you're like, wait, how do these units work together? They don't. They really just don't work that well together. So it's like, well, if you're going to the next tier, why not just go for Broodlords? Because then you can hit a Broodlord Hydra-bane timing attack if they don't have any air units yet. And it's like this super good army, right? So I always don't like the lurkers there. But if we choose to play Roach Hydra Lurker, I've gone back to playing that at the moment. I just think it's a really fun style. I think it's really hard to deal with a Protoss who's very good at counterattacking and sending lots of zealot backstabs in and stuff because you're not as mobile, but you can still focus on that and deal with it, like, right? You know, I'm aware of the weakness. I play against a lot of players who realize I'm going lurkers. All they do is backstab, counterattack, and I commit a lot of units to defending it. I have a system in place for dealing with warp prisms. I have a system in place for building a fuck ton of spine crawlers once I realize they're playing this style, you know. I leave lurkers here and there. I do lurker harass to also hurt them at the same time. There's a system in place, but it really comes down there. It's like, what's better, Hydra Bane or Roach Hydra Lurker? It comes down to your own feeling of what you enjoy. So do you have a composition you kind of prefer there?
Yeah, actually, I said I like that Hydra Roach, but to be honest, I would like play the Ling Bane Hydra style. It's like it's in my comfort zone that I can attack from like 2 sides. So sometimes I can even try to attack Protoss from 3 sides, but yeah.
We just want to kind of work on making it work more often, right? So it's like you know you enjoy the style in theory, you just haven't been able to make it work. So like that's absolutely right. I like that reasoning from you, because this isn't about what's working for you right now. Too often I ask people, I'm like, what do you want to do? They're like, well, I want to do this, but it doesn't work, so I can't do it. I'm like, no, this is the point of coaching. Come on. You know, we're going to try to find a way to make the cool shit that inspires us work. Now, you know, if you come to me and say, I want to play Pure Infesta Mutalisk, I'm going to say, no, shut the fuck up. That's bad. That's not, you can't do that. Like, that's not a composition. But Hydra Bane, Roach Hydra Lurker, both very solid unit compositions and styles. And, yeah, very good. So, awesome. So we'll try to focus on the Hydra Bane as a style. Obviously, transitioning into Lurkers eventually. Let's answer these last questions. Playing against Colossus with Ling Bane Hydra, you feel you're not sure if you should add Roaches or play this style and add Vipers or Corruptors and Broodlords. Okay, great question. Great question. I'm happy we're going through these questions at the start, by the way, because lately I've been getting to the end of a coaching session, realizing there's like a page of questions I didn't even see, and we're like trying to answer them in 2 minutes. This is a lot better. Definitely go straight for Broodlords. And don't throw your units away. So one of the things I do against Colossus is I go attack off creep and throw all my shit on force fields or trying to break their workers. And then their counterattack gets me just before Broodlords, and I go, well, that was dumb. Don't throw your units away. Spread creep. And then basically just set up a full surround / flank when they push. Give up a base as well, if you have to buy time for Broodlords, right? So once the Broodlords come out, that composition is really bad. Like they're like, I have Stalkers and Colossus, and you're like, cool, I've got the longer range unit. You have to fight into me, right? So there's a lot of you just set your units up in kind of a concave, and the Broodlords poke forward, and whenever they blink forward, you just fuck them up, right? Banelings and Zerglings with +2 melee. God
Yes,
damn,
yes.
they punish Stalkers hard, man.
That's so good.
It's beautiful, and then that allows you to play that stage. Vipers is an interesting one because it's like, well, technically, yeah, Blinding Cloud's great and stuff. The problem I find is like if you commit to like a few Vipers with your hydra-bane, well, it's kind of hard to micro the Vipers and the Banelings at the same time. But it's also just like that army of theirs, they can kind of just force field you out and pull back. And if they're good with their micro, don't get me wrong, you'll get players where you just abduct every Colossus and you're like, well, that was well worth it. But you'll also get players who pull the Colossus back and focus fire, or they get a few High Templar for feedback,
right.
and then you just kind of can't do it. Or so you, okay, I can't abduct, that's fine, I'll use Blinding Cloud, and they just pull back, and you're like, oh, damn it. Like, it's hard to force the value out of the Vipers. So if you're like, I really enjoy the Vipers, I like it, get like one. Add one Viper while going to the Broodlords. Just don't be like, I'm going to make 4 Vipers and bank everything on it. Yeah, that's the way I like to do it. There are times where I like rush to Vipers crazy fast, where someone's going like a 2-base Colossus, but like in a really weird situation into like a really late 3rd base. And like, it's one of those weird games that drags on. That's the game where sometimes I'll be like, all right, I'm going to make some Vipers. Same thing if they've gone like Void Ray Colossus. You'll get people who do these weird turtly like Void Ray Colossus openings, like a Disruptor or two.
Yes.
And they, this is the person who like wants to go Skytoss or something strange. I like Vipers in weird situations, but in a very like strong macro Colossus timing, they're almost always going to do a big push before your Broodlords. So it's just about having enough Banelings coming in from multiple angles to just fuck that army up. And actually works really well.
Okay.
Final question. When should I attack with Ling Bane Hydra? Oh, such a good question. I was going to say, we need to define your attacks. Something lately that everyone in StarCraft thinks StarCraft is sitting in your corner of the map, not making any decisions until your opponent does something. And I'm like, what are you fucking doing, man? It's not that people are bad mechanically. It's that there is like an epidemic on the ladder of even Masters level players playing with 0 direction, where they're always waiting for stuff to happen in the game before they make any decisions. And I'm like, come on, man. We should always have some attack timings in our head, right? You said sometimes you scout Protoss chrono boosting Templar Archives. It's a big tell they have no storm yet, so they're rushing it. Do I attack? So I do attack, but I feel it's not working. Maybe a micro is bad. Never attack reactively like that. You're never going to do it, because unless you are already building towards the attack, seeing a Templar Archives chrono boosting storm, like that doesn't tell you anything. So instead of that, actual tells are, hey, my changeling sees there's fuck all army, like you see like an Archon, 2 sentries and an Immortal out front, and you're like, hey, my Bane speed just kicked in and I got like 12 Hydras and 20 Banes, let's fucking go, I might as well. That can be an opportunistic reason to go forward. Let's pick some stuff off, or let's do some Bane run-bys into mineral lines, which is one of the best things with hydra-bane. Bane run-bys and Baneling drops can also be really nice. But I would say we don't really need to focus on the Bane drops. Lately, everyone I've been coaching has been really rushing to the Baneling drops, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But they're messing up their engagements, and they're not splitting their army in 2 properly and attacking multiple areas or like sandwiching. So we've got to make sure it's like, that's like the fancy thing we add on top. That's the cherry on top of the cake, okay? So we want to make sure your frontal engagements and just rolling Banelings into mineral lines is happening first. So like in this game, for instance, if you had this vision, you've got, speed Banes, it's like, well, you've still got the Overlord over the natural. Holy shit, that's huge. Like, absolutely. I'd immediately just be making 15 Banes up here. You see where I'm signaling on the left?
Right now I should see it. Yeah, I see it.
And I'm just shift-clicking that on the Adept and into the mineral line, right? Having the Overlord vision is so good because you can even queue it up to be clicked on the Adept, clicked into the natural mineral line.
Oh, yeah.
And then the main army comes down here and just denies the 4th at the same time. And it's like, okay, maybe they keep the 4th alive and they lose every probe in the main and the natural at the same time. And when I'm doing that sort of run-by in this space location, I'd probably grab 4 of those Banelings and I'd try to click them in this base at the same time. I'd be like, yeah, let's actually just peel just a few of those banes, just in case there's nothing over there. Hey, check it, there is nothing over there. You kill 50 probes in 20 seconds.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Lol.
That's good.
So this is one of the things you want to get good at looking for in replays, is there's always a point here where their army just starts to look scary, right? Storm, lots of Storm. Good little Immortal count, good little Archon count, and you go, well, I've missed it. There's no way to break Protoss now. And usually their bases are naked as fuck. There's like nothing defending their economy. So when you look at the replay, there's always this window at this point where there's like big openings. And then if we don't make a play in the next 2 or 3 minutes, that's when the Protoss usually starts to actually look solid, which is kind of like a turning point. So in terms of, well, what about the attacks? These should be defined before the game starts, all right? The actual attack timing options are defined before the game starts. So let's write some options out. Ignore the replay we're looking at, but let's write down some options with hydra-bane. So let's start with some real gimmick shit. 50 drone, 4 gas, Hydra-Ling with a handful of slow banes. Didn't even start bane speed, right? Only 1 Hydra upgrade finished when the fight starts.
Oh, I never tried this.
Yeah, well, it's basically you're just going so fast. You're like, I've got 12 Hydras. And they're like, I have an Immortal and 4 Sentries. What the fuck, man? And then if they have charge or they warp in Zealots, you morph Banes. Or you have a little like pack of 5 Banelings ready in case they warp in Zealots, and it just deals with that. Okay, so that's one option. All right, cool. Okay, so that's one. I'm not going to write every detail, but there's infinite ones in between. Let's say 66 drone, full 3 base, Hydra plus Bane speed. So we can say something like, oh, let's say, 17 Hydras, something like that. That's enough to form a big concave, right? Plus, 30 Bane speed, plus some Lings. Cool. Okay, that's also a very committed attack, right? You still want to break the third with that, right? So you still want to either break the third or at least kill their entire army. So if you're doing an attack off that, it's okay if you're killing their whole army and they're barely hanging on, right? Even if you don't kill probes. That first attack, we need to kill the third, right? If you're on 50 drones, you need to kill the third base and knock them back to 2 bases, or you're fucked. Beyond that, let's say, okay, 80 drone, big macro 4 to 5 base, hydra-bane. So with this, we might have like double upgrades, maybe. We might only have melee upgrades or only range upgrades, right? Probably melee usually is what we focus on, right? For the banelings hitting the probes.
Yeah.
But we might always go double upgrades if we're playing 80 drone, right? Double upgrades, creep spread, more run-bys, splitting the army into, Bane drops is an option. Essentially, it's more of a flexible style, right? Try to keep them off a 4th and damage their economy / crush their army. In terms of your overall goals, this is a good point to say something else before we forget it. What is your overall goal? So your number 1 goal in ZvP is not to kill economy. It's to kill their army, right? Because how many times do we see someone do a lot of damage and then the 12 Archons, 10 Immortals, 8 High Templar go and kill you, right? We see it happen in pro level as well. Because so basically it's actually not to kill the economy, it's to kill the army, right? Anytime you reset their army, it's great. Because as their army grows, it gets exponentially stronger, right?
Yeah.
1 High Templar with Storm, 2 Immortals, and Archon. Who gives a fuck? We can beat that with anything. But the bigger that army gets, the harder it gets, right? It's part of why we split our army up. Force their army to separate. Suddenly, each army doesn't look as powerful, right? But it's also something where we want to... So, our actual goal is to attack the economy to lure them into splitting their army plus fighting us, right? On our terms. Sorry, one sec. Thank you so much, Ragnar, for the raid. Appreciate that. Sorry, I had to mute it as FPS Doug was just shouting about getting headshots. Thank you, Ragnar. So our actual goal is to attack the economy. We want to lure them into splitting their army, right? We want them to come and fight on our terms and take bad fights. That's the big thing, right? So often going for the economy is simply, yes, it's a good trade and killing probes is great, right? Don't get me wrong. But doing that is what kind of forces the Protoss to not just sit in one blob and take an awesome fight every single time, right? And that's important to remember, because I see a lot of players who really get tilted against Protoss, and they always forget this, myself included, where I go, oh my god, I killed probes all game long, and then he just fucking kills me. And I look back, and it's like, well, usually I fucked up the first few attacks, and then it's like, I got lucky that the Protoss made a lot of mistakes with defending his economy after that, so I was doing damage, but I never was wearing down the army. I was only killing probes. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this like actually still wasn't good enough. Like, I wasn't hitting my goals, you know, and I've done it as a Protoss player. Where I'm like, I'm taking hit after hit after hit. But in the back of my head, I go, as long as my army is not dying, this is okay. And we even see this in Zerg vs. Terran in pro games a lot recently, where Clem is like 80 SCVs versus 90 drones. But then he gets down steadily to like 45 SCVs. He's taken so many hits. Same thing with Big Gabe, right? And you're like, oh shit, he's actually dead. And then you look at the army supply, and you're like, he's got 160 Terran army supply. And you're like, no, actually Raynor's fucked, or, you know, Elazar's fucked, or Cyril's fucked, because it's like they're not at ultras yet, and whilst they've got 90 drones, and that looks great, they are at 1/3 of the army supply right now. And similar to Protoss, Terran also grows exponentially with power. The more of those super high damage range units they have all supporting each other, that's when we start to see those fights where like 40 Banelings run forward and not a single one connects. The Marines just gun them down before a single one lands a connection, and you're like, oh, okay. I see what's happening here. So yeah, I think in ZvP it's kind of good to remember that essentially is our overall focus. It's like, kill the army is number one. Usually we focus on the other stuff, and that kind of ends up happening as a side effect of it, right? So go for the economy, and that's going to force them to trade with you. And that's what we want. We want to keep trading, and we want to stop them getting to that point where they have the big perfect army, preferably. So I think we've answered most of the questions there, and we've got an idea of some potential attack timings. In terms of how do you choose which one of those attack timings, the answer is often choose before the game starts. And just say, I'm working today on 50 drones, super all-in hydra-bane timing. As you get better, you'll learn to choose one based on scouting tells. But for a long time, you start out just saying, let's do 50 drone hydra-bane. Or let's just work on 80 drone hydra-bane for every game. Because you got to get really good at doing the timing before you can take it to that next level of reacting with it. So trying to not be a reactive attacking player, but someone who just kind of says, this is the build I'm doing, choose it before the game, and go from there.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So let's look at this replay now. Obviously, we're not going to be focusing on the same composition, but we can take a look at it. So you're at 45 drones. You got 10 roaches and an overseer here at your third. This is not a very quick DT timing. These are quite slow, in fact. But, well, not quite slow. They're a little slow. But I would say it's pretty standard for what most people end up hitting you with. Pretty textbook on your defense. No spork rulers at all. Usually you do want to add some spores a little bit later after this, even if you get away with being greedy, because, you know, sometimes they will split DTs into each base. So I see some players literally know that it's DT opening, defend the first wave, and then build 0 defense. And that always triggers me a little bit, because I'm like, oh, you're just hoping, you know. Now, if no one ever does that, you defend the first wave, all they ever do is morph Archons, never make any more DTs the rest of the game, and you get away with it, fine. Just keep it in the back of your head. These Protoss players aren't punishing us, right? We are being a greedy Zerg boy, which is a good thing. We've just got to be ready to switch gears as soon as the other race starts punishing us and go, okay, I've started droning after that push. Let's build a spore in each base. So, your opening looked really good. You're going a 4th, you're droning up. I noticed you're going Overlord speed here.
Yeah.
What's that for?
I actually like go for Overlord speed in every game. I mean, I'm not start with it. I just go later for that because I just like to split the Overlords on the corners of the map. I'm usually like using them in the later for blocking for the and 5 base with the creep. Like
Okay.
I like using the
Just give you a...
zerglings for battle and annoy enemies. Like,
Okay.
for
Cool.
example, in ZvP, I just, forcing scans or something like this.
I think it's not bad. I mean, because you had such a clean defense, it's fine. It just felt a little bit early for like just like a bonus upgrade where I was like, oh, it's not the most important thing. But I look at this game, you're in control. Yeah, why not, Okay, so looking at your control groups here, you split your roaches up, but you didn't split the control group. So that's a little bit awkward, that we split the roaches, but we didn't split the control group. I wonder, do you normally ever split your army into, like, if we don't know where that warp prism is, surely we probably like want to leave a bunch of roaches in our main. Do you ever split that?
Yeah, I usually should have split this.
Which control group do you use for it normally for the drop defense?
I usually use like I have 1, 8, or 6 steel hotkey. So I press it and move the army to the, for example, main base.
Cool.
So it's separate.
Cool, because I noticed you do put hydras in the main later as well, so you're pretty methodical with defending that. So in this particular game, you've had the most textbook opening of all time. You're like infinitely ahead. We should absolutely win this game, right? So the question is, you're going Roach Hydra?
Yeah, in this game,
it looks like you didn't just... I would say the only reason you're not going to win this game with how clean your opening's been is just because you don't have any plan of when to attack your opponent, right? Because it looks like... I mean, if you made a lurker den immediately and just made 6 lurkers and then went, you would have... Like, I always have a rule with lurker styles, which is you always morph 6 lurkers as quickly as possible and you go and try to do a push. And if the Protoss is being very aggressive, well, obviously you'll see that. You just pull back and defend, and 6 lurkers, you're unbreakable. They can't do shit. You're like, get out of here, dickhead. And 90% of the time when they're trying to get Storm and stuff, you just get over there. And at the very least, you deny a 4th base. But often you can get in and just kill them with the lurkers. And that's like the rule. Now, obviously, we're not going to be playing that style anymore. But it's kind of something where I just want to say, because you were ahead in this game, and then look at this. We're going, oh, okay, I guess I get a second Evo. Lurker Den? Yeah. Infestation Pit? Yeah. Spines? Sure, why not? So the problem here is you're kind of doing a little bit of everything with no direction. So if you're going to go Infestation Pit, that's for Hive, right? For Lurker upgrades?
Yes.
Cool. We're playing Roach Hydra, so we have no need for a macro hatch. There's just no need to ever have a macro hatch. 6th base is super early. We don't really need that either. Now, are these things bad? No. But if we're doing them, we should be at like 85, 90 drones, basically. So if we were going to play this defensive and go for Hive, well, you're not building towards any attack timing, right? So the problem here is you're kind of massing units, but you're not actually committing to them. Why are we building spine crawlers? There's no reason to build spines until you get to a really big economy, right? Why are we building an infestation pit? Well, to open up the Hive tech. But it's a bit early to be going Hive and second Evo chamber if we're going to commit to an attack. So what happens here is we end up treading water. Sorry, obviously English is not your first language. You know, that's just like where you're literally just sitting in the water, just floating, basically. You're not swimming one direction. You're not swimming the other direction. You're literally just sitting there. And this is one of the biggest problems we can find ourselves in, where it's like, wait. If we're going to late game, we should have built 20 more drones. We've already got a big army. We're really safe. Look at your army supply, right? You've had such a good opening. Yeah. So if we built 20 more drones, went 85, 90 drones, and then said, all right, I'm just building straight to get a couple Vipers and the Lurker upgrades and make 10 Lurkers, and that's when I'm going to start pushing off like 5 base. And because I went to 85, 90 drones so fast, guess what? I can build a ton of spine crawlers everywhere because I'll start banking up lots of minerals because I'm building a gas-heavy army. I've got so much workers, and then I can build like 5 spines up here on the left. I can build 5 spines down here. And like if I looked at you doing that, I would say, I prefer people playing more aggressively. I don't like you just sitting back pretending you're Serral because you're not Serral, you know? And I say this to everybody. I'm like, I'd rather we attack, but at least I would see a clear direction. But what I see here is we're amassing army. We're going really heavy into tech and upgrades, but we're also building static defense and not droning. So we're splitting our focus too much into too many different paths. It's not like this will put you behind, but what you're doing here is you're slowly chipping away at your own lead, right? If we went really hard on attack, we can just go kill him. If we went really hard on the economy and the tech and the upgrades and then turned it into high attack army, we'd be ahead later in the game. But because we're kind of going middle of the road, even though we've got great creep, great macro, we're not putting it in any sort of strategic direction. So there's still many ways to win this game from here, but we can see that we're putting ourselves in a position where there's more chances for our opponent to come back into the game. So this is nice that we've got a little Roach attack here. Trying to deny the fourth. And we're going to try and do some classic two-pronged attack, which is really good. This could have hit a lot earlier. So remember what I said about those lurkers, right? We could have done this just faster. That's the difference here. It's still a good attack. It's still really nice. Just could have been a bit faster. Let's see how we set this up. Oh, I like that annoying lurker over there. Seeing what you can do. We are going to turn and fight. Oh, the roaches didn't attack at the same time, yeah. So basically, we just took a bit long to get that attack going, and we were a bit unsure of what we were doing with it. So what you should have done in that scenario, you had the perfect position. First of all, like I said, we should have been over here faster earlier. We've let him catch up in supply a little bit. But this was your angle. You should have sieged your lurkers right there on top of that ramp, right? If he's got to come up that ramp through lurkers, he's fucked, right? And then you could have just split, like, say, 8 or 9 of your hydras to kill the adept and go into the natural and start killing probes, right? And he has to come back and defend because you're in between his bases. So even if you're not really on top of the workers, you're kind of forcing him. He's got to get rid of the lurkers from there. And while you set up there, you can send the roaches back in down here to hit this base.
Okay.
The other way we could have done it is we could have ran straight into the natural up his main ramp and sieged on top of that ramp. Anytime you get a run past them with lurkers, that's the way to do it. You get on top of a ramp, you defend a choke point, and you set up kind of a concave. At first, I liked that first lurker you put out, but in hindsight, it didn't do anything, did it? It's better to have all your lurkers actually closer together. Not necessarily in a big ball, but more of like a concave, right? So if he was coming up this ramp like this, you can imagine kind of like a concave of lurkers facing that ramp, right? Just an arc. And then they will all be shooting at once as he comes up the ramp, and he won't be able to shoot them with any sort of focus fire. That would have been really nice. Yeah. Cool. Obviously past this point it's all Roach Hydra lurker stuff anyway, but that's definitely something where I wanted to talk about that a little bit for very obvious reasons. Where, same thing with hydra-bane, there will be moments where you're ahead, and if you're not already thinking about your attack timing beforehand, you're probably going to let your opponent back in the game. So just kind of a good mental practice to look at a game like this and go, hey, wait a second, you know, what is our standard plan at X point in the game? Because what this game turned into, if I wanted to take a step back and summarize it, was you got ahead early, and then you made about 20 different tech trees and things. But most of the game, the battles were essentially just Roach Hydra fighting Archon Storm Immortal, right? There was a few fights where you got a small handful of lurkers, but it was always like, there was never that point where you're like, bam, here's lurkers at the best timing possible in the most bullshit position. Let's make the Protoss player complain about balance. Then, you know, go on a forum and whine about how good lurkers are. Every moment, most of it turned into just Roach Hydra fighting against really good units versus that. So we kind of missed our moment to really capitalize on the power of lurkers or capitalize on the power of hive tech or anything like that. So obviously we want to stick with hydra-bane. We've got some kind of focus there on kind of how to define when to attack and that sort of stuff. You are rushing hydra-bane somewhat greedily against Stargate, but I think it's okay because it's Stargate. We obviously would like to kind of look at a practice game if possible of you doing it. Should we hop into a live game now and see how we go? Should we just talk about the theory? Should we look at a different game of you playing hydra-bane and kind of analyze the opening? Anything in particular you'd like to focus on?
To be honest, maybe I rather like to hear the theory. Then I see the notes and I can like practice the stuff on the ranked games.
Okay, so we should find our hydra-bane replay then, right? And we can talk about the theory while we look at that. I think that would be good because from the sounds of it, your opening is pretty solid. Like that one was super solid. So let's just keep opening ZvP games until we find a hydra-bane one. Yeah, so no worries. Thank you very much to Bullia, who was offering to find help. I really appreciate that, Bullia. You're always jumping up to try and off race or play main race or find someone for us to practice with. Thank you so much, dude. Yeah, I'll see if there's anyone in chat who pointed out anything very very interesting. Sometimes there's someone who has like a really good backseat piece of information. Occasionally there's a Silver League player in chat who actually has some really good point we didn't talk about. $90 drones and 130 army supply, pig math. The Terran had I was saying the Terran had like 150 army supply. I never mentioned the Zerg's army supply. But as usual, Twitch chat trying to backseat games. So what?
Yeah, so many short games against Protoss.
Even if it's like 8 or 10 minutes, that's fine. Because we even 7 minutes. Because as long as you're trying to go hydra-bane and you die, we can learn from it, right? So we just need to see the opening.
Actually, this is against Colossi. Not really sure. That's maybe perfect replay, to be honest.
Hey, it could be good.
Maybe, not really sure.
So
I don't remember, to be honest.
No worries, man. That's cool. We'll get in. Oh, did you make me the lobby host?
Oh,
that's all right. You can control this one. Just 8 times speed it first of all, so we can see what goes on. Sorry, I did actually forget though. So I've been waiting for people to be annoying in chat more and more, and it's really good to see. We did have it was Katsukan who was trying to make fun of my maths just before. So I just want to have a quick message from Maynard to Katsukan in chat.
Get fucked, guy in the chat.
No worries. So for those who like backseating from chat, we love you guys. But also, just remember Maynard's wise words of get fucked, guy in chat. We love you, Katsu. I know you're part of the community. Don't take it too hard. So this is a Skytoss game, dude. Oh my lord.
It's not the replay I thought.
That's all right.
Oh.
So you're doing a Hydra all-in by the looks of it? No. Yes? No? Hydra all-in's pretty damn good versus Skytoss. You got 2 Nexi. Running away from Fluxvane's Void Rays doesn't work too well, as you can see, though. Oh, you went Corruptors. Oh no, don't go Corruptors. So Corruptors are good versus carriers. Because this guy opened Void Rays, you should like never think about Corruptors until you've killed all the Void Rays, basically. So you could like start upgrades on them. Do you know what the best unit is when they go Void Rays?
Hydras.
Vipers.
I don't know.
Hydras are good, Queens are good, but you just need a couple parasitic bombs. They clump like crazy.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah. And once they're gone, I mean, if you can do fungal and parasitic bomb, it's great, but the Viper's the most important part, right? So the thing is, you needed to do more with your initial Hydra timings. Even though you killed 2 Nexi, you let him, like, expand to this whole bottom side, right? So you just gave him a free pass. Part of that is you were going Spire, double, triple upgrades, melee upgrades, Hive. You were going in all these directions. You want to commit harder to your Hydra attack. You also ran away from the Void Rays at the start of the game with your Queens, even when it was equal count. Your Queens have really got to take that fight early. It's hard to judge. Obviously, you were surprised. But yeah, if you took that fight and then if you tried to deny these bases on the bottom a little bit more if you could, that would have been pretty awesome. Once you get to this stage, it's like very fucking awkward. You kind of just, yeah. If they add ground army, you've really got to make broodlords. If they don't, it's just fungal parasitic bomb combos and kind of, you know, using abducts to just grab the mothership, grab a carrier, kill it, run away, kill it, run away. Because he doesn't add storm yet. Yeah. Anytime before storm's done, there's some like real nice moments where you can fight. But this game's weird. Let's hop out of this. Actually, wait. Go back to just 4 minutes. And go down to 2 times speed so we can look at the opening.
Dying.
8 times speed, man. The processor destroyer. Yeah, you gotta slow the speed down to like 2 times. 4 minutes. So we want to look at the very opening.
4 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So 4 times speed and just leave it on that. So I can look at this opening. There was a moment there where we had a lot of lava banked up. And we don't know that what his tech is. So we have no idea he's going Stargate. So you're going a really fast Roach Warren and Lair and gases. So this is a problem. Pause the game. Go back to 2 minutes. Go back to regular game speed. Go to 2 minutes. What's your scouting in this matchup look like? Because it's so important to know what's coming our way, right?
3 minute 20. I used the overlord.
To sacrifice? That's too late. There's already... Because the thing is, if you send it in at 320, the Oracle could already be building, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, in this game, we saw a full wall, which is already tells us that he's going Sky Toss, right? Probably. Not for sure, but I mean, that's what I think when I see the wall off.
Okay.
Chat can let us know their thoughts. Obviously, he's definitely doing some gimmick shit. That's for sure. But let's talk about what your standard scouting should be on. Standard scouting. 2 Lings from natural. Immediately dodge adept and queue in for a scout. That's a really nice thing to do every game. So if there was an opening in the wall, they usually dodge the adept on the map. You just queue them on a path, so they automatically do it. You don't need to actively micro them. And then you just run in before that second adept comes out. Usually you'll get in there, and that'll give you some scouting. Now, if you want to be 100% sure, you can do things like this first Overlord can just immediately dive through the main base. And then even if they go Stalker first, you'll see the tech before the Stalker kills you. You'll lose the Overlord, but that's fine. And if they go Stalker after an adept, you'll actually be able to get out the back of the base. You'll go through the main and then hide out the back before the Stalker kills you. That's an option. So if you find you're still not getting consistent information with the Lings, you can investigate that. But for now, just always send those 2 Lings across. And if there is a full wall, scout like a mofo, but assume Sky Toss. I would assume Sky Toss and obviously scout like a motherfucker and try to be good. So yeah, our queens I think could have got rid of these Void Rays a bit quicker. Obviously missing a creep tumor between the main and natural made things a bit more awkward for you. But if you just massed Hydras at this point, and even Hydra Queen can be really good. Like I often think, yeah, you kind of want to go double upgrades and 80 drones, right? But I think it's often better just off 3 base to just make like 25 Hydras and go. Often with some Banelings. You know, just do a 66 drone that like Hydra timing. Don't even need Bane speed. Just Banelings to like blow up cannons and batteries or any zealots or adepts they warp in.
Yeah.
Because if you hit fast enough, like if you hit, you know, early enough, when they've got 2, 3 carriers, like you just kill the interceptors. Even when they have 4 carriers, if you've got 30 Hydras, you just kill the interceptors before they do anything. So I think if you were more decisive with that, it would have been good. But this was a bit rough for you because you went for the really fast Roach Warren, the Lair, the gases, you know, these real defensive things to defend ground play, which wasn't coming. So you could have had a better start as well if we'd realized what we were up against. Awesome. All right, man. So let's hop out of this one. Let's see if we can find that hydra-bane replay. We've only got 5 minutes left, but just see if we can jump into a few more and see what we get. I'm going to write out some, or I'm going to think through some kind of notes. Yeah, while you, and literally just grab ZvP replays, even if you can't remember them, that's fine. Just hop in and see what we got. What do you think is the style you're going to practice? Is it going to be the 50 drone, really aggressive Hydra Ling with a couple slow banes? Is it going to be the 66 drone, Hydra Speedbane attack, or is it going to be the 80 drone big macro? What are you going to start off working on, like immediately later tonight or tomorrow?
To be honest, I think I can start with 66, but I rather prefer, to be honest, later to focus more on the 80 drones, I think.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. Start here and then focus on the others a bit later. I think that'll be a good idea. I think that'll force you to be really aggressive, right? And really work on that. And that can be nice.
Find this replay. I know I'm named that replay, but I can't find it. So many replays.
I mean, if you can always if you remember the name, you can always click the show in folder button, and then you can just search it. So you could search it in your computer. You could go search ZvP or Protoss bullshit or whatever you call the replay in your Windows Explorer.
Unfortunately, I don't remember this one.
No worries.
There is one replay actually. Maybe Ling-bane, but I don't know. It just,
It's all good. Let's just load it up. Rack your brain. What do you fall behind against? Make me the lobby host. Right click me.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it Glaive Adepts? Is it Archons? Is it Oracles? Like what I feel like one of the best things you can have as a player is recognizing the thing that you see that makes you go, I fucking hate this. Like some people suck against Phoenix. Sorry?
This game was one month ago, so I don't really know what I'm playing against in this game.
Okay.
That's I remember this game. I remember this.
That's all right. Just ignore the replay for now, and let's just think theory, because I think that's really useful. So,
yeah, right.
What is Yeah. So what are the things that you feel uncomfortable against? Some people, it's like Phoenix openings. Like they know Phoenix openings aren't that strong, but they just feel it always feels like they get behind against it, you know? Like knowing what you're weak against, recognizing the thing that makes you feel kind of uncomfortable in the game. One of the best things you can do as a player is go, that's the thing I'm not good against. Because then it tells us we got to go and define the details and just get better against that thing. And it makes a really big difference. So, I mean, like so far, I've seen a couple replays of you kind of dominating the opening, right? Like shutting it down pretty easily and getting way ahead economically. So like, I'm not really getting a chance to see you dying to early game stuff, even though you do tend to try to go a hydra-bane opening. I feel like your reactions are reasonably sound. I think it's just going to be, my note would be like, hey, if you do start struggling with the opening, you know, and stuff, it's like, just try to really focus on like what it is that you suck against and just go and write out all the details of how to respond against that. Now, so this is a game. He forced a lot of roaches at you. So this is the perfect game. We talked about at the start, the idea of if you get forced a lot of roaches, that roach hydra timing I was talking about is amazing. I think it's so good. Just roach ravager, like a couple ravagers for force fields, hydras, zerglings, and you just need like 10 hydras, maybe 12 at most. Even 8 or 9 hydras, once they got both upgrades, that forms like a real big high damage, long range firing line, right? Which is super powerful. But so this here, I like that we poked across. I think this was a mistake with your Ravagers, right? I think you just clicked in the base and you didn't expect them to run up this ramp.
That's what happened. Yes.
Cool.
I did not mind to move them like this.
Yeah.
Not Ravagers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we get a cancel on the third, but losing like a couple Ravagers is rough. And this is where we should have just won the game, right? So, you know, you're at the 55 drone count. So we could be getting those Hydra upgrades right now, no Evo chambers, and just going, oh, well, I already built so many Ravagers. You could do it like, okay, let's immediately counterattack with Roach Ravager Zergling, but I'm making the Hydra upgrades and like the fourth gas and the fifth gas behind this to get ready for the next wave, which is the Hydra Roach attack. And you would go up there and you should have just killed that army and won the game, right? There's nothing there. So what's a way you can be more confident with that counterattack? Well, you should always look ahead of what you're going into. So my advice here is it's always good to counterattack like this. Now, the risky thing here is if that prism doesn't go home. So if you ran there and you saw that prism just rotate, change directions and go up there, obviously you need to leave some roaches at home. Or like 4 adepts can come in and ruin your entire day. Because if he defends at home and micros those 4 adepts, 20 drones are going to die. You're going to be like, oh, I'm dumb. So you always want to leave like 4 or 5 roaches. Because you saw the prism go back, we should be like, oh, fuck yeah. So what I would have done is is your Overlord already has good vision there. One thing you could do is literally pull that Overlord off the high ground and just fly it to the left. Just to go, I just want to see what his army looks like. Even better, you got a Zergling. I would just run that Zergling up and go, yeah, there's not that much stuff. It's a couple sentries. It's one immortal only. Sweet. And I would run straight up this 2 ramps and just go for his army first. And if he manages to get behind his natural wall, then I would go for the 3rd base. But essentially, I'd want to kill the immortals, the sentry, and if I can, pick off the gateways, the cybercore, maybe even just win the game. Like, that would be really sick. So, because you're committing so much to this, that would be very, very nice. Now, you are going double Evo, and you are droning behind it, which makes me really happy as well. So, I like the Ravager morph. I would have liked it, maybe a few more Zerglings rallying or something. But more importantly, just check ahead of what you're going into. As it was, we get into the position where you macro very nicely afterwards. I can criticize your 4th base being so late. So you're kind of forced to play the 66 drone style here, right? Because you don't actually have that quick 4th. The problem is we still have so much Roach Ravager in our army. So if you ever get to this point, if you want, you can leave the Ravagers in your army. Personally, I find them fucking awkward. They're too chunky. They block my Banelings. I like to make my army simple. So what would I do here? And we do have to finish up after this analysis, just a heads up.
Yeah.
I would just grab all my Roach Ravager with an Overseer, and I would fucking send it up here. And it would just wait up there, and then my hydra-bane would attack here, and that Roach Ravager would hit the natural. It'd just run up, snipe the unit in the wall, and YOLO into the main and natural mineral lines. And especially with like corrosive vials there, like you will get through that wall instantly, right? And then your hydra-bane is this like valuable, cost-efficient army, and your Roaches and Ravagers are like I want to get rid of this unit. I don't want these guys anymore, man. But it's also handy because, hey, they're still a good run-by unit, right? They'll still get in there and fuck shit up in those worker lines. So that's what I would like to do at this stage of the game. I think that would have been really nice. Now, you are going double gas on the 4th because you're low on gas. That's totally fine. But I'm kind of looking at it going, okay, like we're droning up a little bit, but where's our attack? Why is our attack not hitting? You know, Bane speed, double Hydra upgrades have finished. I feel like we should have been set up to engage the moment that Groove Spine's finished 5 seconds ago. We should have already been out here, spread out, ready to attack in, or spread out front the 4th, ready to go in, morphing another 20 Banelings with all this money. So
I'm not sure if I was waiting for 2-2 upgrade. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, you might have been thinking about it. Never do that. Never wait for the upgrades. Because even when you think about 2 upgrades and how powerful they are, if a Protoss adds Storm to this army, that's way better than 2 upgrades. Same if he adds another 2 Archons, another 2 Immortals, that's always worth more than our upgrades. So be more focused.
Wait for the upgrades actually, so that's a good point.
Yeah, I fall into the same thing, man. When you're going double upgrades, you're like, why would I attack right before +2 melee? It feels kind of wrong, but in ZvP, it's like, no. Because the thing is, you don't have to headbutt the fight. Don't get me wrong. You're not just clumping your army up and running it in a ball into his units, but you're setting up for the trade at the very least. So like I said, you could have... Notice how he's got his 4th built? Shield batteries, pylons finished? He had no units defending that for the last minute and a half. We could have denied that with like 4 Hydralisks and at least delayed it by 30 seconds, right? And this is the thing that we're missing right now, is we're just letting the Protoss do his thing right at the moment where we're strongest and he's weakest. You're giving him, in both of these games, you're getting way ahead, and then you could kill him, you could kill him, you could kill him. You're waiting, and then you're giving him that time to make his army just strong enough to survive. And the whole time, this 3rd mineral line is wide open, right? So if you'd come forward with hydra-bane and tried to cancel that 4th, his army would be sitting down there defending it. He'd rebuild the 4th, and 10 banelings slide in from the bottom and kill every worker on that base. And all your roaches slide in from the top into the natural and one-shot that immortal and start killing all of his probes, right? So don't think of it as, oh, I've got to just fucking headbutt my army right now and instantly trade everything. No, but it's like, number 1, don't let him get a 4th, especially because you're on 3 bases. And speaking of kind of headbutting our army, did we come from 2 sides? Yes. But look how good those force fields are. This whole army on the left is fighting pylons and like 1 Archon right now.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is like very common where it's like, wait a second, did we just fight our whole army into his whole army? That's what Protoss players want, right? That's what they love, man. So it almost works here, and it's not a bad timing. You just could have hit much earlier, much faster. And looks like you Yeah, and then the Zealot counterattack comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, you maybe win this game. But anyways, I think we've covered the key points there. So that's... dude, this is refreshing. Honestly, I look at your macro, I look at your micro. So far in these games, your reactions have been on point. If you just get out there earlier, I think you're going to win a lot of games very suddenly against Protoss players.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can focus on that 66 drone timing initially, get over there, start, denying the fourth, setting up big concaves, doing run-bys into those mineral lines, and really just focus on the tactics from there. You could even think of it as like a 66 drone, 3 base or die trying challenge, because you've got those fundamentals. You really do. You're just not winning at the moment where you're strong. So I think this is going to be a massive change in your ZvP win rate. I think you're going to dominate some players, dude. So that's very good. It'll just take a bit of time to get comfortable executing all those attacks and those run-bys and things and exploding into that aggression. But yeah, I think you're going to murder a lot of people, man.
Okay.
Awesome. All right,
I will
well,
practice.
Yeah, save me some replays, label them up if we do another session. Hit me up whenever you want to book in.
I will create an